Tonight on Pia.
I think there's a reason for everything, but it's really made me question why we're here.
I was putting up with stuff because I hadn't decided what my boundaries were or what I actually wanted.
I always say that everybody is allowed their mulligan marriage. If you play golf, you know mulligan's your free shot if you flub a shot.
I haven't found a gal who can tolerate how much I move around.
This is going to be fun. Falling in love is probably the most wonderful feeling in the world. And losing someone you love is probably the worst. Tonight, we look at both sides of the coin. All you need is love, as the Beatles sang. It's the best. You just can't beat it. Who doesn't remember falling in love? The details are so vivid. Falling in love is so intense. Jerry Doucette remembers when he met Maggie, his wife of many years now. It was the 60s. He was a rock star. She was a fan, putting the move on him. Murray Bancroft is half of a power couple with Sarah Bancroft, founder of a hit online newsletter. He reminisces about how they fell madly in love on a passionate European adventure. Celebrity chef Robert C. Clark extols the virtues of friendship turning into love. A.J. Giuliani and Meg Rowe fell in love performing the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet. What could be more romantic than that? Whereas Jennifer Clement and Vince Gale were cast together in 5 different productions before they realized they were already in love.
I see this girl dancing by themselves, you know, by herself, right? And she's doing that hippie helicopter thing, you know, she's twirling around like that. I thought, wow, that's cool. I haven't seen that before.
We actually dated in university and went on a great epic trip to France together one summer and motorbiked across.
We were friends before we were lovers. So, I mean, we share a lot in common. I mean, our lives, a lot of her professional career has been in the same establishments as I have been.
Well, the first memory I have of her truly is standing on a chair and me having to sort of be on my knees looking up at her, and we did the balcony scene together. And then nary a word was exchanged other than that, and she went off and I had to go and then read the balcony scene with a bunch of other broads.
We were not working together. We were sort of thrown together. I think in the space of one theater season, we were both offered about 4 or 5 shows together. We just sort of kept being thrown together.
Yeah, maybe 5.
You know, honestly, it just hasn't happened.
I like women. I just like girls. I love women. Why wouldn't I like women? They're awesome.
Did you recognize the 2 Johns? Film star John Piper Ferguson and shoe mogul John Fluvog. More from them later. So there's a lot of things that can get in the way of love. Career, family, social position, age, race, culture. There's a lot more to developing a relationship than just falling in love. The mellifluous Blue Man Kuma reveals the importance of parental approval for young lovers. Comedy duo Linda Cullen and husband Bob Robertson celebrate the joy of being married and working together, whereas actor William B. Davis waxes ironic about the difference between being married and living together. And my pal, witty broadcaster Nikki Renshaw, celebrates her long-term marriage to drummer and set designer Slam Renshaw.
Well, we've been together for 23 years. And when I met him, I was hosting music TV shows, and he was in a band, and I interviewed him.
My first girlfriend is a white lady who I loved to pieces. I loved her. But her mother, oh man, I would call on the phone. I got these pipes. God bless Barry White. He did wonders for me. So I feel a tap on the back of my shoulder, and I turn around, and it's Maggie. And she says, I just want to thank you for playing such great music, blah-de-blah, on and on and on. Pia, I was trying to be the nicest gentleman, because this is Mom. You got to respect, okay? So, hello, is Joanne there, please? She said, yeah, just a minute. Joanne, that sex maniac's on the phone. I wasn't looking for anybody or anything. I thought, no, I'm with the hot band, just going to earn a living, you know, and if it falls into place, it will.
So lots of Romeo and Juliets hook up. Not a lot last past the sort of 2-week post period.
Proud of that.
Then I saw her. Then I saw, you know, as opposed to, oh yeah, you know, I saw something.
When we met, it was just, I don't know, it was just something.
We dated for quite a while and really kind of started probably from the same spot, you know, in our careers, and have kind of built things together.
Then we lived together since '96. And then we got married in 2000.
I don't like being married, but getting married is really a lot of fun.
I think it's because it's too terrifying for me.
We had to get married because we had to make the cats legal. You know, they needed proper parents.
Yeah, I've been legally married 3 times, but I've been in maybe 5 relationships.
I haven't found the gal who can tolerate how much I move around.
I think as any marriage is, it's a journey, but it's, I love it.
I was working up my will recently, or estate planning, I suppose, as we now call it. And well, how are we going to deal with these? The lawyer said, you know, you're married, you know, for their purposes, you know, and stuff. Oh. So I went home and told Barbara, oh, by the way, we're married now. You know?
Vancouver's ultimate variety. Virgin Radio 953. Virgin Radio, Vancouver.
So, what makes a relationship work? How do couples defy the odds and stay together for the long run? Well, you got to have the chemistry that brought you together in the first place, and you got to keep that drive alive. But there's more to love than love. Long-term couples seem to have shared values and common goals. Now we continue with our celebrity friends and add into the mix food writer Jamie Ma, Linda Cullen's husband Bob Robertson, punk princess Biff Naked, and TV and film star Ingrid Torrance.
I'm somebody that when I'm committed to something, I'm committed to it.
You know when that's it, this is the one, this is my baby. She's a heart of gold, she's strong, she's a little Dutch girl. And there's a saying, wooden head, wooden shoes, wouldn't listen.
Meg's Albertan. She's no nonsense, she's direct, she's frank, and she is an organizer, and I am not. I'm madly off in all directions, so she really kind of keeps me on track.
Every relationship's about give and go, and it's about establishing roles and boundaries and stuff.
He said, this is what I envision for you, and this is for Linda. And I looked at it, and it was less for Linda than it was for me. And I said, it's got to be 50-50. If it isn't 50-50, this thing isn't going to work.
The more equal we are, the easier it is.
There is something that runs quite deep in that whole 50-50 thing that covers the marriage, the professional relationship, and everything that we do.
We live quite autonomously, so that, we share a house, but we don't share a bedroom. We share a kitchen with some effort. We have separate offices, we have separate phones, we have separate bank accounts, we have separate, So we don't fuse our lives.
First of all, we don't fight. We hate fighting. We don't argue. We do not have arguments. We have disagreements, but we don't have arguments. We're just not built like that for two people. So, we lucked out that way, and that, neither of us were fighters. And so that has helped. It's a pretty quiet house, except when we laugh. We do laugh a lot.
And the cats.
And the cats, yeah, well.
We had some serious ups and downs, as far as finances are concerned, and we'd argue like anybody else did. But in the end, we wouldn't let it go on and on and on. A couple hours later, as opposed to a week later, it'd be over with.
Aside from loving each other, we really like each other. So So most of the time, you know, we enjoy our time together.
You're put in this place to bring out the best in other people so that they might have the opportunity to bring out the best in you.
We have always felt that we were sort of a team working toward the same goal.
When I married Ian Walker, we were making a reality TV show about the wedding. We went away for 2 weeks to Mexico, and it was the first time that I had ever spent 24 hours straight with my new husband, ever. And then I had 14 days of that. So how I didn't hang myself.
We have not been without each other's company now for, I don't know, 8 days, let's say. Or, you know, so maybe Linda will go to the market and get some fruit and vegetables and whew, hour to myself.
I'm not going to say that that I didn't like Ian. It's just that I was very surprised by many things that I learned on our honeymoon. You know, just stuff like, you know, Ian's favorite food group is bacon. Or, you know, Ian, you know, didn't share a lot of my philosophical ideas. And it was just a big, what are you talking about?
And I also think a lot of alcohol is really important because it keeps everything light and cheerful.
We come off this honeymoon kind of like this, and shell-shocked. And we're like, oh, I don't know.
We like to save the drama for the stage is really, I think, in terms of living life, I think to really try to find that place of acceptance in your life, and then the struggles that you have on stage can be the ones that can be as crazy as you want them to be.
Sometimes love doesn't last. Things don't always work out between people. Statistics certainly bear that out. Our divorce rate is over 50%, and that's just from people who actually got married. When love goes away, or lives go in different directions, the hard part is trying to reduce the pain for everyone. And the creative part is you get the chance to redefine who you are in the world.
When my younger sister turned 18 years old, I was already long out of the house, as was my older sister. She decided that's the end. And she asked for a divorce from my father. And it wasn't upsetting for us grown children, because we were like, man, you two have had separate bedrooms since we were children, or you two have, you know, I didn't grow up in a very physically demonstrative house.
We don't always have control over other people and what happens to us.
Daddy's getting married was born out of my father's wedding day. Even though, you know, I wasn't slitting my wrist over it, but definitely what it brought out lyrically, probably at the time spoke to some subconscious, you know, feelings about it.
I was married from you know, 22 to 26 or 7, and then I always say that one didn't count.
And I always say that everybody is allowed their mulligan marriage. If you play golf, you know mulligan's your free shot if you flub a shot. So I always say you're allowed your mulligan marriage, so it doesn't count.
Then I got married at 30 and divorced again at 50, and that one counted big time. You know, 2 kids. I had another child from my first marriage, and 2 kids from the second marriage. And now I got married again, and the woman you met, I've been married to her for 8 years.
It's unfortunate if in a marriage the only thing you have in common is, say, your children. That's probably, I mean, it's enough to keep probably some marriages together, but I don't think it should necessarily be like that.
I've seen lots of other guys who go into a second marriage and just simply want to continue procreation.
Sometimes people don't stay the same at the core of who they are. They change. And we can't do anything about that.
I was married very early to a really great guy. I feel like I kind of did it, you know? And I was so focused on that, and I forgot to be focused on me.
I put up with stuff that was not really good for me. It wasn't positive, it wasn't good. I was putting up with stuff because I hadn't decided what my boundaries were or what I actually wanted.
I remember in my last divorce, I remember the lawyer for my ex-wife at the time kind of leaning over and charging. I said, I suppose you think you could just come and go as you pleased. And, well, yeah, actually, I kind of thought I was a grown-up and I should be able to come and go as I please. But this was kind of laid into me like it was sort of just some total betrayal of a promise and a trust.
There's some real moral parameters that I think we all need to set in our lives. Because if we don't set those, we get out of control.
And now, here's our very own true love, Patrick Maliha.
I think it's safe to say that if you live long enough, at some point in time, all of us will either lose something that we love or lose someone that we love. I know for myself, there have been 2 moments in my life when this has happened. One, when I was 16 years old and I had lost my godmother, who was more like a grandmother to me than anything. And 2, when I was an adult, my dream job. In both cases, I felt the same gamut of emotions. I was upset, angry, depressed, and of course, a little bit guilty. It was at that point I realized that if somebody near to you does pass away, they would be honored to know that you felt an incredible sadness and longing for them, and you never really get over their passing away. Another example is when I lost my dream job. I remember, we had just had the best show in our short tenure. The next day, we were riding on cloud 9. We were thrilled, and I received an email from my boss that said, "Patrick, can you come in at 8:30 instead of 11:30? I thought, this is the bonus I'm waiting for. Here comes the raise. Little did I know that we were actually all going to be let go due to an economic downturn. If you're going to let somebody go, don't make them come in 3 hours early. That's just a douchebag move. I'm over it. Whenever something horrible happens in my life, I like to think of the immortal words of the great poet Sylvester Stallone, when he said in the film Rocky Balboa as the character Rocky,
"Life ain't about how hard you can hit. It's about how many hits you can take. It ain't about how many times you can knock somebody down. It's about how many times you can get up."
But it's true, though, when you think about it, ignoring the simplicity and the preconceived notions we have about Sly. It goes all the way back to the ancient Buddhist saying where fall down 7 times, get up 8. And that's a pretty good way to live your life. Until next time, I'm Patrick Maliha. This is the Maliha Minute.
Vancouver's ultimate variety. Virgin. Virgin Radio 953. Virgin Radio, Vancouver.
If love is the sweet elixir of life, then loss is surely its bitter bromide. Loss is worth talking about. It happens to all of us. And celebrities are no less immune to tragedy than any of us. We just don't expect celebrities to talk about it. Nikki Renshaw shares how she lost her father and her career all in the same year. Biff Naked reveals how she discovered breast cancer on the 2nd day of her honeymoon, fought the disease, and is still married to the man who lived through it with her. Janet Wright. 20 years ago, she lost her sister and her parents in a house fire. 5 years ago, her daughter was murdered outside a Vancouver nightclub. And yet, Janet Wright still manages to retain her famous ironic wit. Alessandro Giuliani is the only son of the late, great John Giuliani, an icon of Canadian theatre.
Yeah, he was. He had a lot left in him. Too soon, without a doubt. Still so much fire. You described him as fiery, I think he truly was. And he still had so much in him to give. It was the great tragedy of losing him.
Sometimes they go, maybe I wish she hadn't been so kind, but she just was.
A nicer man has never, ever walked the planet. We lost him a couple of years ago. Hank Urbick and her mom, the same. They're my parents, you know. Arms so wide, love so deep.
I think the thing I found with my dad dying was it was really sudden, and he basically took his own life. He had cancer and he had it for a year. And when he started to lose his faculties, started to be unable to walk, he decided he wanted to die. And I think the last straw was my husband having to help him to the washroom on Boxing Day. And the day after Boxing Day, he just said, that's it, I want to die. And he tried to overdose on the bottle of morphine that he had. And my mum wrestled it from him and she wouldn't let him. And then he said, well, you have to help me. If you won't let me kill myself, you have to kill me. And she said, no, I'm not going to. And from that minute on, he refused to have anything to do with her. So in typical English fashion, my brother phoned me and said, darling, Dad's tried to kill himself. He's tried to get Mum to kill him. She's not having it. Anyway, go to the country, and if anything drastic happens, I'll call you. And he basically starved himself to death and died 4 days later.
After I lost my parents and Susan years ago in a fire, I went to work the next day. I didn't know what to do. So, and it was the same in a way with Rachel. I mean, they gave me 3 weeks off. I was doing the Stephen King thing, and I went back after 3 weeks, and because I didn't know what to do.
I found that sort of real shock and that loss really, really hard to deal with. And then, of course, I stayed in London and helped my mum look after, basically I looked after my mum for a couple of months and dealt with her grief, and then didn't really come to terms with my own. And it was the same thing losing my job, was the fact that I was called into the meeting with the GM, and they'd already pulled the plug on the station, and 15 of us lost our jobs. So that was a shock. So it seems to have been a year of shocks, and that sort of takes its toll on you.
Actors know how to express emotion. So watch as these performers put you right there, in touch with the truth, as they feel it.
It's so easy to let yourself go.
It's something that you deal with every day.
I'm going through a bad time now because of her. And then I go through a fine time. But it never goes away.
And as time goes by, maybe it becomes something that isn't every day, but at seminal moments, particularly when you miss that person and you wish they were there.
The odd thing about the beginning of grief is it's almost, I'm beginning to see, almost like a party.
It was another celebration. Just as their wedding had been a celebration, and that was always the intent. And that was another, it was a magical afternoon, again, where there was such, it was such a communion and a convening of energies.
Everybody's going to be kind to everybody for the rest of their life. They're constantly going to keep in touch, and they're always going to do good deeds, and you know, isn't life grand, and will you forgive me for what I did 45 years ago, and blah, 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 blah. And you're all going, oh, isn't this all wonderful?
It was epic. It was sprawling. It was, there were interlopers who came and crashed it. It was just so in the spirit of him. It seemed like we could, as much as we planned it down to a T, leaving it open to that sense of anarchy and to a sense of that anything could happen was the ultimate tribute to that man.
And then about a year later, your grief hits you. And that's when you don't want to call. And that's when they go, well, call me anytime. But they didn't mean call me in 6 years at 2 a.m.
It's something that everyone goes through. And for me personally, it happened in a point in my life when I was lucky to have support around me.
People grieve differently. And it just kind of, you know, in an odd way, it's brought us much closer, and in other ways, distant.
2 years later, we are now learning how to effectively communicate. We are now learning how to acknowledge and respect each other's built-in coping mechanisms.
You don't know sometimes when someone's acting out a certain way or feeling a certain way. You don't just automatically go, oh, they must be grieving.
I'm just so thankful that no matter what happened between Ian and myself, our commitment stayed intact. Even when we lost faith in ourselves or each other or the institution, no matter what, the commitment stayed intact. And I really believe that we could very possibly get through anything.
I think there's a reason for everything. but it's really made me question why we're here, what the purpose is.
I don't believe in God, and I never have. And I don't believe in him even more.
And my dad was a really, really successful man. He wrote books, he invented things, he was extraordinary. And it came down to us packing up his clothes and putting them in garbage bags and taking them down to the Salvation Army and dividing up his possessions, and who wants his Burberry raincoat and who wants his Tiffany cufflinks. And you think a whole life, and then it starts making you look at your own life and think, what's the point?
That's the irony of grief, as you know.
However brilliant you are, the most you can hope to be is a footnote in a history book like Madonna, and the rest of us are going to be forgotten in 2 generations.
Live every day as if it was going to be your last, and study every day as if you're going to live forever.
And so we left the last word for William Davis, a wise note to end upon. Thanks to all our wonderful guests for sharing their intimate stories. And thanks to you for watching us. I'm Pia Shandel.
Pia would really like to know how you feel about the show. Please email us your comments at pia@thepiashow.com.